Hello there, welcome to my continuing series of reviews of Agatha Christie adaptations. In this video I'll be looking at a fairly recent adaptation, 2017's Crooked House. As with most Christie films, this features an all-star cast, but also comes with a script by Downton Abbey scribe Julian Fellowes. It's a one-off Christie story featuring characters that don't appear in any other books and centres on the death of millionaire patriarch Aristide Leonidas.
It is with sorrow that the country learns this week of the death of Aristide Leonidas.
The story begins when Aristide's granddaughter, Sophia, played by Stephanie Martini, hires private investigator and old friend Charles Hayward, played by Max Irons, to find her grandfather's killer. At first, Sophia is the only one who believes her grandfather was poisoned, and suspects one of her many dotty relatives. Upon reading the autopsy results, Charles agrees.
If injected directly into the bloodstream, it would cause a heart attack.
Aristide was poisoned when his medication was substituted. If this sounds like the catalyst of the plot of Knives Out, then it should, because it's very similar, and intentionally so, as Rian Johnson was not only inspired by Christie, but was also attempting to invoke the feel of a Christie story with his own twist. The similarities continue as we meet each member of the family, which consists of Glenn Close as Lady Edith de Havilland, whose sister was Aristide's first wife, and who moved in to care for the children. She hated Aristide, and also happens to be quite handy with a shotgun when it comes to eliminating vermin.
I do find a shotgun best expresses my feelings.
Aristide's eldest son Philip, played by Julian Sands, resented his father for passing him over as manager of the family business and refusing to fund a play Philip wrote for his wife, Magda, played by Gillian Anderson. Magda and Philip are the parents of Sophia, Eustace, who suffers with polio, and Josephine, who spends her time spying on the rest of the family. Second Leonidas' son, Roger, played by Christian McKay, manages the family business badly, and his wife Clemency, played by Amanda Abingdon, happens to be a poisons expert. Aristide's second wife Brenda, played by Christina Hendricks, is much younger than Aristide and is having an affair with private tutor Lawrence Brown, played by John Heffernan. The family believe Brenda is the culprit, particularly when it's revealed she inherits the entire fortune.
The primary beneficiary of the will is the second Mrs. Leonidas.
But Charles suspects everyone in the house, as they all had an equally strong motive. When the nanny is poisoned, and someone cuts the rope ladder to Josephine's treehouse, the question arises amongst everyone else of what motive Brenda could have for those actions.
That's stupid. I thought Brenda had done it. Or Lawrence.
While this sounds like a very promising setup for a rip-roaring classic Christie adaptation, unfortunately, it's very hard to care about all the goings-on, as the whole thing is just too bleak and too bland. It's a fascinating story with a fascinating cast, and yet the muted, desaturated colours gives the whole film a feeling of one-note melancholy that prevents you from enjoying or engaging in the mystery. And the actors seem to all have been told not to have any fun, as they are all just as dour as the colour scheme.
Here's the man himself.
Much too frivolous for the occasion. I apologise, Mr. Hayward.
I am an historian. I write on medieval art and literature.
Perhaps you should be aware that I am a senior research chemist at La Roche.
What have they all been saying about me? All of them down there.
All except for Glenn Close, who almost feels like she's in a different film.
Can't I play detective too?
It's almost an act of alchemy to take a normally engaging, larger-than-life, very attractive cast of infinitely watchable solid gold actors and turn them into this leaden drudgery. There's nothing inherently wrong with this kind of atmosphere that the film creates, but combined with the oppressive score and low-key performances, and this all just feels very one-note, lacking the light and shade, literally and metaphorically, that you need to feel involved in the story. While they all might have had a motive, it's hard to believe that any of the characters would care enough to actually bother to commit a murder, as none of them seem energized enough to do such a thing. The moments of genuine excitement are limited and stifled, and I'm not sure what the director or writers were going for, as it fails to connect on either an emotional or an entertainment level.
Your arrival here must have caused quite a stir.
This is one of Christie's darkest tales, and a personal favourite of hers. Yet, because the whole film has been so dreary, by the time the killer is revealed, you just end up shrugging and thinking, yeah, makes sense, moving on. It feels like a massively wasted opportunity, as this should have been an opportunity for a great cast to have an absolute blast, playing eccentric, potentially murderous aristocrats, and doing it before Rian Johnson would inject new life into the format.
I suspect foul play. I have eliminated no suspects.
Charles could have been either shockingly naive, stumbling his way through the case, or sharper than all of them, and equally as unshockable. But instead he's just a competent plodder who, for some reason, has a subplot that he used to be a spy, or maybe still is, that doesn't really go anywhere.
But rumour has it that you two get along well.
Hello? Buddy, you're being followed.
Yes, I know.
Changing the time period from the late 40s to the late 50s could have been an opportunity to explore how many upper-class families fell apart post-war, just as the rock and roll era was beginning to be born. But instead we get just a few slight nods to pop music being a thing, and even these are pretty joyless. The joylessness and lack of humour makes all the characters just feel too similar, and when there's a scene of them all airing their grievances towards each other, we get no more information than we have already gathered from how they've been for the rest of the film, in what could have been a revelatory experience. For contrast, if you compare this with another murder mystery with an all-star cast about a wealthy patriarch potentially being murdered by a member of his family when his medicine is tampered with, only for a private eye to discover the skeletons in all their closets, the aforementioned Knives Out, you can see not only the contrast, but how to do this sort of film right, without going over the top.
I mean, these are camps!
Come on, Joni, nobody's saying that isn't bad, but the parents have some blame here.
That film manages to balance the tone and define each of its characters so that we not only want to know who done it by the end of the film, but are actually invested in watching how they interact with the detective and each other. In Crooked House, I'm afraid I just didn't care, and it's such a shame. As done right, I think this could be a fascinating story to tell. It's not all bad. As I mentioned, Glenn Close's performance is fantastic, and she really tries to bring a contrast of emotions and tones to every scene she's in. But her hard work alone is not enough. It's a watchable adaptation for the overall plot, but you're better off reading the original book, and this film is not one that I would seek out. Not unless you want to be depressed. It lacks the warmth, sly humour, or fun of better Christie adaptations, and despite the immensely talented cast, all falls a bit flat. Thank you. Goodbye.